appears again. At that moment, a man named Christopher Blatt walks in. He introduces himself as one of the organizers of the investigation and says he is also acting directly under the king's orders. He then asks the person in charge if there is anything unusual happening inside the dungeon right now. The mage in charge hesitates to answer, but Christopher notices this. He remarks that it's only natural to be cautious about sharing information since they belong to different organizations. But for now, he only asks them to share whatever they can to show how serious things have become. Christopher tells them that the adventurers who entered the dungeon just a few moments ago vanished right before his eyes. Natalie and the other adventurers are shocked to hear this. Christopher continues explaining that he was just about to enter the dungeon with a group of local adventurers they had hired, but as soon as they crossed the dungeon's entrance, the adventurers suddenly disappeared. Natalie listens closely and replies that her magic compass readings also suggest multiple disappearances have been taking place. She explains that the last disappearance she detected happened on the 40th floor. Christopher is shocked by this because the deepest any adventurer has ever reached before was the 38th layer. Anything beyond the 30th layer is said to be a challenge even for B-ranked parties. Hearing this, the adventurer in charge speaks up. He says that one of Loon's B-ranked parties, the Crimson Sword, was escorting his team, and he strongly believes they would still be together even now. Natalie hears this and doesn't like the sound of it, but after a few moments she suddenly gets an idea and quickly runs off to put it into action. Meanwhile, the adventurer in charge mentions that he has already sent a messenger to the Adventurers Guild, so he hopes the guild master will come as soon as he hears the news. That same afternoon, Nina arrives at the guild and tells Hugh that something has gone terribly wrong in the dungeon. The entire investigation team suddenly vanished without a trace. She also explains that Christopher, the dean of the College of Magic, is asking for Hugh to come to the dungeon entrance right away. Hearing this, Hugh begins to sweat, wondering if this disappearance also includes Abel and his party. Without wasting another moment, he jumps up and declares he's heading out immediately. He instructs Nina to keep the rest of the staff on standby and grabs his coat while telling her to assemble their liaisons at the dungeon's entry point. However, he makes it clear that the adventurers in the guild must not know any details yet. Instead, he tells Nina to simply inform them that he will explain everything once he confirms the truth of the situation. Meanwhile, Rio is seen entering the town's massive library because he needs to check out some very important books, but after a short while, he becomes overwhelmed, realizing that the library is so enormous that he doesn't even know where to begin searching. He climbs the stairs with a sigh, muttering that he really wishes Syrah were here to help him. Today turns out to be his lucky day as Syrah is seen standing right by his side. Seeing her, Rio lights up with excitement and rushes over, explaining that he came to compare records of past eclipses and great tidal bores, but he's completely lost on where to look. Syrah tells him he's lucky because she knows exactly where those records are kept, so she leads the way. While guiding him, Syrah asks if he believes there could be a connection between eclipses and great tidal bores. Rio answers that he suspects there might be a partial link. Hearing this, Syrah nods and says he's right to think that way. She confirms his suspicion. She then explains that she has studied this subject before and discovered that every great tidal bore in history has been preceded by an eclipse. However, she points out that this time is different, since it wasn't just any eclipse, it was a full one. That's what makes this case unusual. Curious, she turns to Rio and asks how he managed to come to the same conclusion. Rio stiffens at the question, realizing he can't possibly tell her the truth, that he was fighting an Akuma right in the middle of the eclipse. To avoid suspicion, he quickly changes the topic and asks Syrah what determines the brightness of a magic stone. Syrah immediately realizes he's just trying to dodge the question, but she still answers. She tells him that the longer a monster lives, the brighter and more vivid its magic stone becomes. Rio agrees, saying he learned that himself during a past journey with a friend. But what troubles him is that all the stones he collected from monsters during the tidal bore turned out to be pale and dull. If they had been brightly colored, it would have meant elder monsters from the lower dungeon levels were resurfacing. Hearing this, Syrah responds that pale stones suggest the monsters had only just recently spawned. Rio nods, but then points out how strange it is for an entire group of monsters to spawn so suddenly and all at once, completely out of nowhere. That said, if the monsters were created manually, Rio points out that it would have taken an enormous enormous amount of mana. Syrah agrees, admitting there are still too many mysteries surrounding this case. However, she reveals that she already knew about the pale magic stones. Some old records about a past great tidal bore mentioned that the monsters back then also had pale stones. Rio is shocked to hear such records exist, but Syrah explains they're in poor condition, so even most librarians don't know about them. She asks if he wants to see them, and Rio immediately says yes. So Syrah leads him to where the records are kept. Meanwhile, the adventurers remain trapped in the abyss. Harold breaks the silence, saying the strange sensation they felt just now reminded him of teleportation magic he once experienced in a dungeon of the western provinces. He's certain they've been relocated, probably to another floor of the dungeon. To confirm, he asks one of the party mages if their instruments are working. The mage checks and nods, saying their device using wind magic is functioning perfectly. He believes the surface team should be able to send them information on their location. Hearing this, Lynn brightens with hope, saying once they know their position, the surface team will most likely send for help. But Harold isn't so confident. He says something feels off about the aura surrounding this place. Turning to Rihia, he asks if she's noticed it too. Rihia concentrates for a moment, then says the aura is almost identical to the one found in Sanctuary Square. Abel recognizes the reference immediately, realizing they're talking about a holy spell that only high-ranking priests can cast. Rihia explains further, it's considered the ultimate defensive magic, capable of blocking all physical and magical attacks. Hearing this, Abel concludes that they're trapped inside a massive barrier. Rihia agrees, pointing out that it must be enormous since they can't even sense where the boundaries are. Abel then turns to Lynn and asks her to use her probe technique to scan the surroundings. She does so and quickly report back. There are multiple human presences about 500 meters ahead, roughly 1,000 humans and 50 other life forms she's never encountered before. Harold assumes it must be Clive and his party, since they were probably dragged into this abyss the same way. With that, the group decides to head toward the human signatures. Meanwhile, Hugh finally arrives at the dungeon entrance where Christopher is waiting. Christopher informs him that the adventurers were likely teleported all the way down to the 40th floor. Hugh feels the weight of the situation instantly. Reaching that floor is impossible, even if they mobilized every adventurer in town. Christopher warns that the real problem isn't just their disappearance, it's the cause. If they don't know why it happened, there's no guarantee it won't happen again, and he refuses to put himself or his men in such danger. Hugh agrees, saying it would be reckless to endanger local adventurers under those circumstances. For now, all they can do is wait and hope for the best. Meanwhile, Clive and his team are ambushed as purple flames rain down from the above. Some adventurers manage to raise barriers and survive, while others are burned alive. As Clive stares at the approaching monsters, his eyes widen in horror. These are devils. He had only ever read about them in books, but their appearance matches the descriptions perfectly. The mages do their best to fight back, but they're clearly being overpowered by the devils. Not long after, Abel and the others arrive at the scene. Shocked by what they see, Rihia takes a closer look at the monsters and immediately recognizes them as devils. Devils are enemies of the gods and angels, immune to most magic, and far stronger than any human. Lynn's voice carries a hint of fear as she asks why devils would even be down here. Harold doesn't hesitate and orders the adventurers to prepare for battle. Meanwhile, Clive begins to accept his fate, since the devils keep advancing, and they have no real means to fight back. But just then, several magic arrows rain down on the devils at once. The adventurers from Harold's side launch long-range magic attacks against the devils, and to their surprise, it actually causes damage. Rihia is shocked by this discovery, since books claim that devils are immune to magic. It turns out those records were never confirmed. The adventurers keep holding their ground with their spells, but the overwhelming number of devils worries Harold. He fears the mages will run out of mana before they can defeat them all. Abel quickly decides they'll have to join the battle with close-range combat. As he scans the battlefield, he notices a much larger devil standing behind the rest. Abel realizes that one must be the boss devil, and that defeating it might be the key to ending this fight. Abel leads his party straight into the battlefield, and together they manage to cut through several waves of devils with ease. Harold watches them fight, and now he knows why the Crimson Sword Party has such a good reputation. But after a few minutes of battle, both Lynn and Rihir run out of mana, leaving them vulnerable. They ask Warren to cover them, but the situation worsens when they reveal they're also out of of magic potions. Abel quickly surveys the battlefield and sees there are 6 devils left. He starts to question if they can really finish the fight without Lynn and Rihia's support. At that moment, Rihia urgently warns Abel that the devil with the mismatched eyes is actually a demon prince. She explains that they are the immature form of a demon lord, and only 4 can exist at once. Rihia adds that only a hero has ever been recorded defeating one, so Abel must be extremely cautious. Hearing this, Abel makes his decision. He steps forward and declares that he'll fight to defeat every devil except the demon prince, since there's still a chance something unexpected could break the barrier and help them escape. Looking back at Rihia with a smile, he tells her not to look so sad. Turning back to face the devils, Abel thinks to himself that this situation isn't nearly as terrifying as when the Griffon once had its eyes on them. With that, he charges ahead and defeats 2 devils using only his sword. That's when the demon prince himself steps forward, clearly signaling that he wants a one-on-one duel with Abel. Abel and the demon clash fiercely, but it doesn't take long for Abel to realize the enormous gap in strength. Deep down, he knows he doesn't stand a chance. The mages, pushing themselves to their limits, gather the last of their mana and launch it at the demon prince, but their spells have no effect at all, confirming that magic is completely useless against him. To make matters worse, the remaining devils continue bombarding them with purple fireballs, steadily breaking down their defenses. With their strength fading and no hope in sight, the adventurers start to accept the grim possibility that this may be the end for them. The demon prince charges at Abel, and as a last resort, Abel unleashes his secret sword technique, Zero Turn, aiming to slice off its head. But the demon moves aside at the last moment and knocks Abel hard to the ground. Using his sword to support himself, Abel struggles to stand. Having already accepted his fate, he simply apologizes to Rihia for being too weak. The demon prince prepares to finish him off, when suddenly, a drop of water falls from the ceiling, and Rio comes crashing down, even sticking the landing. Confused, Abel asks what Rio is doing here. Rio replies confidently, saying he's here to save them, of course. He suggests they retreat immediately, but Abel quickly warns him about the powerful demon prince they've been fighting. Rio glances at the demon prince and scoffs, saying that creature is far too weak to be a true demon prince. Confidently, he walks straight toward it, but Abel urges him to stay back, insisting the demon is dangerously strong. The devils then launch a long-range attack at Rio, but he casually blocks it with his Ice Lance technique. In the next instant, he unleashes his water jet attack, cutting off the remaining devils' heads in a single strike. Seeing his men defeated so effortlessly, the demon prince